Have you ever stopped for a moment and asked yourself, is there really such a thing as a perfect bedtime? Not just any bedtime, but one that could actually sharpen your memory, protect your heart, restore your energy, and help you wake up feeling like yourself again. It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? We live in a world where health solutions come in expensive bottles, complicated routines, and long lists of medications. And yet, what if the answer to feeling better, truly, deeply better, was something as quiet and as natural as the time you close your eyes at night? If you're over 70, or if you love and care for someone in their golden years, I want you to stay with me today, because what I'm about to share with you has the potential to completely change the way you think about sleep, and more importantly, the way you age. Because here is the truth that most people never hear. The reason you're feeling more tired lately, the reason small things keep slipping from your memory, the reason you wake up groggy even after 7 or 8 hours in bed, it may not be because you're getting older. It may simply be because you're going to bed at the wrong time. I've been a sleep specialist for over 20 years. I've sat across from hundreds of patients in their 70s and 80s who came to me worn down, frustrated, and convinced that poor sleep was just something they had to accept as part of aging. And every single time when we made this one adjustment, just this one, their lives changed. Not slowly, not slightly, dramatically. Within weeks, people who had been waking up at 2 in the morning for years were finally sleeping through the night. People who had been relying on afternoon naps just to get through the day were waking up refreshed and ready. People whose moods had been flat and heavy for months were laughing again, moving again, calling their grandchildren again. All because of when they went to sleep. So before we go any further, I want you to take a breath and let go of any skepticism you might be carrying. I understand it. You've probably heard a lot of health advice over the years. Some of it worked, a lot of it didn't. This isn't a trend. This isn't a supplement or a product or a program someone is trying to sell you. This is science, deep, careful, peer-reviewed science from some of the most respected institutions in the world, including Harvard Medical School, the Mayo Clinic, and Johns Hopkins University. And it all points to the same conclusion. When you go to bed matters enormously. And after the age of 70, it matters more than most people realize. Let me take you back a few years to a patient I'll never forget. His name was Mr. Johnson. He was 70 years old, a retired high school history teacher with a sharp mind, a quiet dignity, and a warm sense of humor. He walked into my office one cool fall afternoon looking like a man who had been carrying a weight he couldn't quite name. He sat down, folded his hands on his lap, and said to me, "Doctor, I go to bed at the same time I always have, around 11 o'clock. I lie there for what feels like hours. When I finally do fall asleep, I wake up more tired than I was before. I don't understand what's wrong with me." And I remember looking at him and thinking, there is nothing wrong with you. You've just been given a new set of instructions from your own body, and no one ever told you how to read them. You see, after the age of 70, something subtle but profoundly important begins to happen inside the human brain. Our bodies start producing melatonin, the hormone that signals to us that it's time to rest earlier and earlier in the evening. Where once that drowsy feeling arrived around 10:30 or 11 at night, it now shows up at 8:30, sometimes even 8 o'clock. That soft heaviness in your eyelids after dinner, that gentle pull toward the couch, that sense that the day has done what it needed to do, that is not weakness. That is not laziness. That is your biology speaking to you in the clearest language it knows. And when we ignore it, when we push past it to watch one more episode or scroll through our phones or wait up for the late news, we miss a window. And once that window closes, the body shifts, stress hormones begin to rise, and the chance for deep, restorative sleep quietly slips away. That is exactly what was happening to Mr. Johnson. His internal clock had shifted, the way all of our clocks shift as we move through the decades of our lives, and his old habit of staying up until 11 was keeping him well outside the window where his body could truly rest. So I asked him to try something, just for 3 weeks. Go to bed at 9:30 in the evening. No television after 9. No bright lights. No late phone calls. Just listen to what his body had been trying to tell him all along. He chuckled at me. That early, he said. I'll feel like a child. I smiled and told him just try it. And 3 weeks later, he walked back into my office and I almost didn't recognize the energy in the room. He was standing straighter. His eyes were brighter. He shook my hand with a firmness that hadn't been there before. And he said something I still think about to this day. He said, "It's like someone turned the light back on in my brain." He was sleeping through the night. He was waking up before his alarm. He had gone back to his morning walks, something he hadn't felt up to in almost a year. And he hadn't taken a single new medication. He had simply honored the rhythm his body was asking him to follow. Mr. Johnson's story is not unusual. It is not rare. It is, in fact, the story of millions of older adults across this country who are quietly suffering through poor sleep, not because something is broken inside them, but because no one has ever sat down with them and explained what is actually happening. And that is exactly what I want to do for you today. So let's talk about the science. Let's talk about what is really going on inside your body after 70, why sleep changes the way it does, and what you can do starting tonight to begin working with your body instead of against it. When we are young, our sleep is organized into predictable cycles. Each cycle lasts roughly 90 minutes and moves through several distinct stages: light sleep, deeper sleep, and then the deepest stage of all, called slow-wave sleep or deep sleep, followed by REM sleep, which is where most of our dreaming happens. Each of these stages serves a different purpose. Light sleep is the doorway. Deep sleep is where your body does its most important physical repair work, releasing growth hormones, rebuilding cells, strengthening the immune system, consolidating memories. REM sleep is where your brain processes emotions, sorts through the experiences of the day, and makes connections between ideas. Together, these stages form a complete cycle of restoration. But here is what changes after 70. Studies have now confirmed that by the time we reach our 7th decade, we experience up to 40% less deep sleep than we did in our 50s. Let that sink in for a moment. 40% less of the most restorative stage of sleep. That is not a small shift. That is a fundamental change in the way your body recovers at night. And it means that even if you are technically sleeping for 8 hours, your brain and your body may only be getting a fraction of the deep rest they genuinely need. This is why so many older adults wake up still feeling tired, still feeling foggy, still feeling emotionally flat, even after a full night in bed. It is not all in your head. The sleep is simply not as deep as it used to be. But here is the crucial piece of information that changes everything. While we cannot fully reverse this reduction in deep sleep, we can dramatically improve the quality of the deep sleep we do get by sleeping at the right time. Research from the Mayo Clinic published just a few years ago found that older adults who consistently went to bed between 9 and 10 in the evening experienced a 45% improvement in overall sleep quality. Not a small bump, not a marginal difference. 45%. They fell asleep more easily. They woke up less frequently during the night. They spent more time in the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. And they reported waking up in the morning feeling genuinely refreshed, sometimes for the first time in years. Why does this happen? Because when you fall asleep at the time your body's natural rhythm is calling for, you align your sleep cycle with your circadian biology. Your melatonin levels are rising. Your core body temperature is beginning to fall, which is a signal the brain uses to initiate deep sleep. Your stress hormone cortisol, which needs to be low for restful sleep to occur, is at its lowest point of the day. Everything inside you is coordinated and ready. But when you delay sleep by even 90 minutes past that window, when you push through the tiredness and stay up until 10:30 or 11, you begin to miss this alignment. The melatonin peak passes. Cortisol begins to creep back up, and the brain, robbed of its optimal entry point, struggles to drop into deep sleep the way it otherwise could. It's a little like trying to catch a train that only comes once in the evening. If you're at the station when it arrives, you step on board and the journey is smooth and restful. But if you arrive 15 minutes after it has left, you're waiting on an empty platform. You might eventually get where you're going, but the ride will be harder, longer, and far less comfortable. Now I want to tell you about another patient who taught me something important about this. Her name was Mrs. Williams, a gracious and articulate woman of 76 who had been struggling with insomnia for more than 40 years. When she first came to see me, she had tried everything: melatonin supplements, herbal teas, white noise machines, sleep restriction therapy. At one point, she had even taken prescription sleep medications, which helped for a while but left her feeling groggy and disconnected the next morning. She sat down in my office and said, "Doctor, I have gone to bed at midnight since I was a teenager. I genuinely don't know if my body is capable of sleeping earlier." And I believed her. I didn't dismiss that. 40 years of any habit leaves a deep imprint. But I also knew that her body's needs had changed, and that her midnight bedtime was working directly against the biology she now lived in. We made a plan together. Gradual, gentle, realistic. We moved her bedtime back by 30 minutes every 5 days. So from midnight to 11:30, then to 11, then to 10:30, and finally to 9:30. We adjusted her evening routine as well: dimmer lights after 8, no screens after 8:30, a cup of chamomile tea, and 10 minutes of gentle reading before bed. And something remarkable began to happen. By the time she reached a 9:30 bedtime, she was falling asleep within 20 minutes of lying down. She was sleeping until 5:30 or 6 in the morning with only one brief awakening, sometimes none at all. She came back to my office with tears in her eyes, not tears of sadness, tears of relief. She whispered, "Doctor, I finally sleep." And then, after a pause, she added something I will never forget. "I forgot what it felt like to not be tired." What Mrs. Williams experienced is not a miracle. It is what happens when a person stops fighting their body and starts listening to it instead. And the benefits she experienced went far beyond simply feeling rested in the morning. Her daytime fatigue, which had been severe enough to limit her ability to drive and cook and spend time with her grandchildren, diminished significantly within the first month. Her mood, which had been marked by a persistent low-level anxiety and a quiet sadness she had attributed to age, began to lift. Her memory, which she had been quietly worrying about, became sharper. She stopped forgetting where she had placed things. She started finishing books again. She called her daughter every morning instead of waiting for her daughter to call her, because she finally had the energy and the clarity to reach out. These improvements are not coincidences. They are directly connected to what better sleep does inside the aging brain and body. Let me take a few minutes to walk you through the 3 most important health benefits of sleeping at the right time after 70, because I want you to understand not just that this works, but why it works. First benefit is cardiovascular health. Your heart never truly stops working, even while you sleep. But during deep sleep, the kind that is most abundant when you go to bed at the right time, your blood pressure drops, your heart rate slows, and your cardiovascular system gets its most important period of recovery and repair. In our clinic, we track sleep habits and heart health outcomes across several hundred older patients over a period of 3 years. The results were striking. Patients who consistently went to bed between 9 and 10 in the evening experienced a 45% reduction in cardiovascular events and complications compared to those who kept later bedtimes. Blood pressure levels stabilized. Irregular heart rhythms became less frequent. Several patients were able, with the guidance and approval of their cardiologists, to reduce their cardiovascular medications. One patient, a 73-year-old man named Robert who had been managing high blood pressure for over a decade, came to me after 3 months of consistent early bedtimes and said something that stayed with me. He said, "I didn't realize how tired my heart was until it started beating easy again." The second benefit is memory and cognitive function. This one is particularly important because memory concerns are among the most common fears I hear from patients in their 70s and 80s. And they are legitimate fears. Cognitive decline is real, it is common, and it is frightening. But what most people don't know is that the quality of your sleep is one of the most powerful factors influencing how well your brain functions, and more importantly, how well it protects itself against decline over time. During deep sleep, your brain does something extraordinary. It activates a kind of internal cleaning system called the glymphatic system, which flushes out toxic proteins and metabolic waste products that accumulate in your brain cells throughout the day. One of the proteins this system is responsible for clearing is called amyloid beta, which is directly associated with the development of Alzheimer's disease. When you sleep well, consistently, and at the right time, this cleaning system operates efficiently. When you sleep poorly, or when your sleep is chronically delayed past your biological window, the cleaning is incomplete. The waste accumulates, and over time this accumulation can contribute to the cognitive fog and memory lapses that so many older adults experience and fear. In a 6-month study we conducted at our clinic, patients who adopted a consistent 9 to 9:30 bedtime showed a 32% improvement in memory function as measured by standard cognitive assessments. The couple I think of most often when I share this statistic is Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, both in their mid-70s, who came to see me together because they were both experiencing what they described as things slipping through the cracks, forgotten appointments, repeated questions, names that used to come immediately now hovering just out of reach. They were scared in the way only people who have watched a loved one lose their memory can be scared. Within 3 months of committing to earlier, more consistent bedtimes, both of them showed measurable improvement. Mrs. Thompson stopped missing her afternoon medications. Mr. Thompson returned to his morning crossword puzzles and started finishing them again. He told me, grinning, "I feel like the lights are back on upstairs." The third benefit is emotional well-being and mental health, and I think this is the one that surprises people the most. In our clinic's most recent findings, patients who followed a steady 9 to 10 p.m. sleep routine reported a 58% reduction in symptoms of anxiety and depression. 58%. That is not a small number. That represents real people waking up with a genuine sense of calm. Real people feeling like themselves again. Real people having the emotional reserves to connect with their families, pursue the hobbies they love, and face the challenges that come with aging without being crushed by them. And the science behind this is clear. During the early hours of nighttime sleep, your brain processes the emotional experiences of the day. It sorts through what happened, files away what matters, and gently releases the tension and the stress that accumulated while you were awake. This is why a good night's sleep genuinely makes difficult things feel more manageable. It is why people who are sleep-deprived are more irritable, more anxious, more prone to sadness and despair. And it is why older adults who have been suffering through poor sleep for years sometimes describe a persistent emotional heaviness that they can't quite explain, a flatness, a distance from joy, a sense of going through the motions. That is what chronic sleep deprivation does to the emotional brain. And that is what better, timelier sleep can begin to undo. There is one more benefit I want to mention before we talk about practical steps, and that is blood sugar regulation. For anyone living with diabetes or prediabetes, or for anyone who has been told their blood sugar levels are something to watch, this is particularly relevant. Research has consistently shown that sleep quality and blood sugar stability are deeply connected. When we sleep poorly, especially when we miss the deeper stages of sleep, our cells become less responsive to insulin, which means blood sugar levels become harder to control. But when older adults begin sleeping at the right time, and getting more consistent, deeper sleep. Their overnight glucose levels stabilize significantly. In our clinic, several patients with type 2 diabetes were able to work with their physicians to reduce their insulin doses after making this one change. Their bodies were simply managing glucose more efficiently because they were finally sleeping the way their biology intended. So now let's talk about the practical side. Because I know that knowing the right bedtime is one thing and actually getting yourself there is another. Habits are powerful. Routines run deep. If you have been going to bed at 11 o'clock for the past 40 years, the idea of crawling into bed at 9:30 can feel strange, even a little absurd. I understand that. I've heard it from hundreds of patients, and what I always tell them is this: you don't have to do it all at once. Small, consistent steps are the most sustainable path to lasting change. The first and most important thing you can do is start honoring the signals your body is already sending you. That wave of drowsiness that washes over you in the early evening, around 8 or 8:30, is not something to fight. It is your body's most honest communication with you. It is your internal clock saying the day is done. It is safe to rest now. When you feel that, instead of reaching for the remote or the phone or another cup of tea, try pausing, acknowledge it, respect it, and begin moving gently toward bed. The second thing to do is look at what you're putting into your body in the late afternoon and evening. Caffeine is a far more powerful sleep disruptor than most people realize, and it stays active in your system for up to 6 hours after you consume it. That means a cup of coffee at 3 in the afternoon is still influencing your brain chemistry at 9 in the evening. Many of my older patients are genuinely surprised by this. They've been having their afternoon coffee for decades and never connected it to their nighttime wakefulness. Try moving your last caffeinated drink to before noon and see what difference that makes. Similarly, heavy evening meals keep your digestive system working overtime during hours when your body should be shifting its focus toward rest. Try to finish your last full meal at least 3 hours before bedtime. And if you're hungry later in the evening, reach for something light and easy: a small banana, a few almonds, a warm glass of milk. The third thing is to pay attention to your light environment in the evening. We evolved as creatures who slept with the darkness and woke with the light. That biology hasn't changed. Even though our lives now include electric lights, television screens, and glowing phones, the blue light emitted by screens and bright overhead lighting tells your brain that it is still daytime and that melatonin production should be suppressed. This is the last thing you want in the hours before bed. Starting around 7:30 or 8 in the evening, try dimming your lights, switching to warmer, softer bulbs, and reducing your screen time. Some people find that wearing blue light blocking glasses in the evening helps significantly. Others simply set a rule for themselves. Phone goes face down at 8. Television goes off at 9. Whatever works for you, the goal is to give your brain the environmental cues that night is truly coming and that rest is near. The fourth habit is building what I like to call a genuine wind-down routine. We don't expect a child to go from full activity to deep sleep in an instant, and we shouldn't expect that of ourselves either. Your nervous system needs time to shift from the alert, active state of daytime to the calm, receptive state that makes sleep possible. Give yourself 20 to 30 minutes before bed to do something genuinely soothing. Read a few pages of a book, something pleasant, not a thriller that will keep your heart racing. Listen to soft music or a gentle podcast. Do a few minutes of light stretching. Sit quietly with a warm blanket and let your thoughts settle. Pray if that brings you peace. Write a few lines in a journal, whatever allows your mind and body to exhale. And as much as possible, keep this time free from anything stressful: news programs, difficult conversations, financial worries, to-do lists for tomorrow. This is your time. Protect it. The fifth habit is perhaps the simplest and the hardest. Step away from your screens. I know I've touched on this already, but it deserves its own emphasis because it is so consistently one of the biggest obstacles I see in my patients. The combination of stimulating content and blue light that screens provide is almost perfectly designed to keep your brain awake and alert when it should be winding down. Late-night television, social media scrolling, late-night texting with family. All of these activities send signals to your brain that are directly opposed to the signals you need for restful sleep. Try putting your phone in another room by 8:30. Use an old-fashioned alarm clock so you don't feel you need your phone nearby. Record your favorite late-night television programs and watch them the following afternoon instead. These small adjustments add up to a dramatic difference in how quickly you fall asleep and how deeply you stay asleep. Now, I want to be honest with you about something. Making these changes is not always easy, and it doesn't always happen overnight. Some people find the transition to an earlier bedtime relatively smooth. Others, particularly those who have been night owls for decades, find it a genuine challenge. If that is your experience, please don't be discouraged. The goal is not perfection. The goal is direction. Even moving your bedtime back by 30 minutes consistently can begin to make a measurable difference. Even choosing water instead of coffee at 3 o'clock, even dimming one light in your living room at 8, these things matter. They signal to your body that you are listening, and your body, given the chance, will respond. I also want to address something that comes up often in my conversations with patients, and that is the question of napping. Many older adults nap during the day, and for many, this is a natural and beneficial practice. Short naps of 20 to 30 minutes in the early afternoon can be genuinely restorative without interfering significantly with nighttime sleep. But long naps, those lasting an hour or more, and naps taken late in the afternoon, after 3 or 4 o'clock, can meaningfully reduce your sleep pressure, which is the biological drive to sleep that builds throughout the day. If you are struggling to fall asleep at a reasonable hour in the evening, take a close look at your napping habits. Try limiting afternoon naps to 20 minutes or moving them earlier in the day, and see whether that shift makes it easier to feel genuinely sleepy by 9 or 9:30 at night. There is also the matter of your sleep environment, which I think of as the container that holds everything else. A cool room, somewhere between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, is consistently associated with better sleep quality in older adults, because a drop in core body temperature is one of the key triggers for deep sleep onset. Darkness matters too. Even small amounts of light filtering through curtains or from electronic displays can subtly interfere with sleep depth. Blackout curtains, an eye mask, or simply turning all electronic displays away from the bed can make a meaningful difference. And noise is worth addressing as well. Some people sleep better in complete silence. Others find that a consistent background sound, a gentle fan, a white noise machine, soft nature sounds, helps mask the intermittent noises that might otherwise wake them. Experiment with what works best for you, and once you find it, be consistent. I want to take a moment now to come back to something I said earlier, because I think it is the heart of everything we've talked about today. Your body has not broken. Your sleep has not disappeared. What has happened is that your biology has evolved, the way all of our biology evolves as we move through the chapters of our lives. Your internal clock has shifted. Your melatonin timing has changed. Your capacity for deep sleep, while somewhat reduced, is still present and still powerful. It simply needs to be accessed at a different time than it used to be. And the beautiful truth is that once you stop fighting this shift and start flowing with it, the restoration that you thought you had lost begins to return. I've watched this happen so many times. A woman in her early 80s who had been convinced she would never sleep well again, finding herself waking up naturally at 6 in the morning after a full, unbroken night. A man of 75 who had been taking 2 medications to manage his anxiety, discovering that consistent, timely sleep had done more for his peace of mind than either of them. A couple in their late 70s who had stopped taking evening walks because they were always too tired after dinner, gradually regaining the energy and the desire to move, to be outside, to enjoy the evenings together in a way they hadn't in years. These are the stories that keep me in this work. Not the statistics, as important as they are. The stories, the faces, the quiet tears and the surprised laughter. The moment when someone realizes that the life they thought they had left behind is not as far away as they feared. If you've been struggling with poor sleep, with low energy, with memory lapses or emotional heaviness, I want you to hear this clearly. There is a path forward. It does not require expensive interventions or complicated programs. It begins with one small decision tonight to honor what your body has been asking for, to close your eyes a little earlier, to give yourself the gift of rest at the time your biology has chosen for you. Sleep is not passive. Sleep is not simply the absence of waking. Sleep is medicine. It is the most ancient and most powerful form of healing the human body possesses. And when taken at the right time, when you work with your biology instead of against it, it can do things that no pill, no supplement, no procedure can replicate. It can quiet an anxious mind, steady an aging heart, clear a foggy brain, and restore the quiet joy of waking up and genuinely looking forward to the day ahead. You are not too old for this. It is not too late for this. The research is clear, the stories are real, and the path is open. All it takes is one night, one decision, one gentle act of listening to the wisdom your body has been carrying all along. Tonight, when the house grows quiet and the light fades and that familiar soft heaviness begins to settle over you, don't push it away. Don't reach for the remote. Don't scroll through your phone one more time. Instead, let yourself be led. Follow that gentle pull toward rest, because on the other side of it is the sleep you deserve, the health you are still capable of, and the mornings you have been waiting for.